You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast. And like and share our Facebook page as well. And follow us on Twitter. Joining me today is Asjad from Cricket for Us 2.0 for this cricket discussion that we're going to discuss about the 100 today. Asjad, welcome.
Thank you for having me, man. It's a pleasure and glad to talk all things 100 because it's a format that no one needed, but then they felt they did because it's that entertaining. But yeah, very happy to be here.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine to have you on, Asjad, as always, and you're welcome on the channel in the future as well. So let's get this discussion started, Asjad. Let's talk about why the ECB invented the 100 and created the 100 in the first place. Sort of to get younger audiences involved in cricket, make it more simpler, sort of fast cricket that's not really T20 cricket, but it's sort of different, replacing overs with balls. It's very complicated, but they've created it in the first place to connect with those different age demographics in England. You living in England, Asjad, you've got a better read on this than I do. But what's the general vibe and the feeling about the 100 in England? What do you think?
So basically the thing is, ECB created for those reasons exactly, but they also created it because they realized people getting into cricket, they probably won't understand and overs. They won't understand how many balls there are. Why are there 6 and not 5? Why is everything not easy? 5, 10s, and those types of numbers. And that's the reason why the 100 kind of exists. Now, if we talk about the vibe in England, people don't really watch cricket that much, honestly speaking. However, people are turning up to watch the 100. People are turning up more for the 100 than they do usually for the Vitality T20 Blast. Even in the pandemic era and all that stuff, things are opening up, but people are interested in the 100. One, so it's new, it's fresh, so the numbers will tell you 3.7 million on the first day, loads of people watching it, a lot of people tweeting about it, etc., right? And the Cricinfo and a lot of other specific websites are prioritizing the 100 over certain things. Someone really knowledgeable recently told me that Nasser Hussain is considering the 100 more important than the India-England series because that is the brand that England are kind of generating. Yes, it's a different type of cricket, but at the end of the day, it is very similar to T20. I saw an interview on Quality Shot where Benny Howell said it's pretty much the same as T20 cricket. The only difference is I can bat against the same bowler for 10 balls potentially, right? So I can get used to the first 5 balls, and then the next 5 I can go ballistic if I need to with the bat, or with the ball, vice versa. If I'm in good rhythm, I can keep going and going until I potentially can set a guy up. I never thought I would see the day where you get the opportunity as a bowler without bowling 4 no balls. You could set a batsman up in the first 5 or maybe even in the first 7 and then get them out on the 8th delivery because you've set them up so well. Have them on strike for those 8 balls and you set them up exactly what to do. So I think there are benefits, and I know we're going to go into it, but that's largely the reason why. They want to respread cricket. Yes, they started the T20 Blast initially, early 2000s, and that was huge in the first few years. And then the IPL became absolutely ginormous. At the end of the day, England kind of suffered at the end of it. England didn't create franchise leagues or anything until now. This is England's version of the IPL, the BBL, the PSL, etc. So I think it's a money grabbing opportunity at the end of the day. It's a new format to get people, oh, what's the 100? And then they're going to search on it. They're going to give it a watch. Like, it's just a way of getting new people interested. And especially the women's side of things, I think it definitely has helped. Like, largely, I think the women's cricket is similar to the WBBL or a bit of the the IPL T20 challenge that they had last year and the year before. So yeah, it's something that is a very good way to get girls and women into cricket. But in terms of the men's side, I just think it's a bit of an overkill. But I know we're going to talk about it in detail shortly anyway.
Yeah, well, you pretty much stole what I was going to say about the ECB and the IPL. To me, it feels like with T20 cricket, England sort of felt like that was their baby. They sort of owned it. But now with the IPL and various other leagues around the world, they feel like it's not India's owning IPL T20 cricket now, not England. So they feel like inventing this new format, it's something that's our own again, and we own it. And obviously they didn't really capitalize on that T20 boom, England. They didn't really see what it could potentially have, like India have with the IPL.
Yeah.
So do you think that with this 100, Asjad, do you think they're sort of thinking that way of wanting to capitalize this time and make it right this time? Whereas with T20 cricket in the early days, they didn't quite do that.
Yeah, I think this is their attempt to say, oh, when we tried it the first time, which is when T20 cricket became a thing all around the world, they're like, oh, we didn't capitalize, as you put it. Like, I can't put it any better than you just did. Well, then India kind of, I don't know if you know about the ICL that happened just before the IPL in 2007, 2008. And that was
I did hear about that in a book that I listened to on an audiobook. This guy created this league before the IPL was created. Yeah,
exactly. So it was technically an illegal league. It was similar to the Kerry Packer league that happened in the 70s, 80s, right? So this ICL was the platform that the subcontinent needed to show them, oh, wait, our players can actually play really good T20 cricket and get money for it at the end of the day. I liked the ICL because the Pakistani players did really well in it, okay? Yes, there's bias, but that's why I remember the ICL. And then when the IPL started in 2008, we know, oh, this is now a legitimate version of what the ICL was. So everyone who watched ICL automatically transferred to the IPL. And people who were like, oh, franchise in cricket, there's not a small minority, but there are some purists who would say franchises in cricket or Premier League kind of conversation is not the best thing for cricket. You need to have international teams and counties and clubs, etc., or regional cricket rather than having franchises. But even those people have changed their mind. At least I've seen that they understand the benefits of franchise cricket. We've seen with India. Yes, India hasn't won a World Cup or anything like that since IPL started, but the cricket they play, the fitness they're with at the moment is just of another level. I was watching an interview of Andrew Flintoff's a couple of days ago, and it was from a few years ago when he went into the BBL to play. And he said, I have to get in shape to be able to play in the BBL because all these young guys have six packs and they can run faster than I can, better than I can, and probably ball faster, hit further. But I have to realize the fact that I have to get in shape. I have to be more agile, do all those things, which is at the end of the day, which means you are now an athlete and a better sports person at the end of the day. And now that culture has been brought into cricket all around the world. It's not just now Australia and South Africa and maybe West Indies and England, right? Now it's every team does consider fitness being a huge thing. And I think that's largely due to the to IPL and initially the T20 side of things. And that's my long-winded way, Jack, of saying that it could be something England has capitalized on if other franchises and other leagues actually take it up as well. If the IPL, if T20, if all the franchise leagues around the world become 100 tournaments, then it's something they've capitalized on initially. I find that difficult at the moment, but we'll have to see how it goes. Let's see the results at the end of the tournament to see how beneficial that has been. Have people started to play cricket a lot more? Have kids been confused before watching cricket last year and now watching cricket this year and say, I understand this. Now they go to their local club and say, I want to bowl the first 5 balls. They're like, why? Why aren't you bowling in a whole over? Sorry, what's an over? Like, I don't want that. And I have a feeling that's going to happen. And they'll have to learn. If it's kids that they were kind of targeting, it's working, but they're not caring about what happens after they go to the local club and realize that's not how cricket is played.
That's right. Yeah, that could happen potentially. As you said, kids playing club cricket and then you're playing normal traditional cricket compared to the 100, what they see on TV and at the ground. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But we shall wait and see if they do really capitalize on the 100. And probably could be like the IPL. But no one's going to match the IPL. No one's going to touch that. So we should wait and see on that.
14 years ago. 13, 14 years ago, it's like it's going to be difficult to compare the two because it's still going on. If it had stopped after a few years, you could potentially make the comparison. But right now, there's no comparison. That's the honest truth.
Yeah, exactly right. So Asjad, with the 100 going on at the moment, you may have watched some games and obviously do some live streams on some games as well. I've watched some games and highlights as well of some of the games. What have you liked about the 100 thus far? What are the things you've liked about
it? First thing that I've liked about it is the fact that, and I know a lot of people talk about this, but I'm just going to bring it up early. The fact that a bowler can bowl 5 overs and 10 overs, bowl 5 balls in a set or 10 balls in one set at the same time. What that does is it gives that bowler that opportunity. As I mentioned before, it gives that bowler the opportunity to set a batsman up, but also if you're bowling well, keep going, and you potentially a 10th of the deliveries of the entire innings you've bowled in one go. And if you're not getting hit for too many runs, that's, let's say you get hit for like 5 runs in those 10 balls, you've done a fantastic job, right? That's one thing I like. Another thing I actually have liked is the fact that some games have been quite close. And the time, if you remember, well, I don't know if you remember, but basically when the T20 blast started initially in the UK, they used to have a time limit that you couldn't take more than 30 or 40 seconds to get to the crease from the dugout. Now the 100 has something similar, but due to advertisements, cricket being now, T20 being so global, no one cares about that anymore. So T20 games last 4 hours sometimes, maybe even more than 4 hours sometimes. The 100 lasts 3 hours or just under 3 hours, 9 times out of 10, right? Yes, there are certain reasons why the game might slow down, but at the end of the day, I like the fact that it's quite concise, and that could be something that a lot of people like. I've spoken to a few people, and their response is the 100. It's difficult, it's this, is that, but we finally know if the match starts at 6:30, it's going to end at 9 or it's going to end at 9:15. Not the fact that, it starts at 6:30 and then I'm sitting in the ground till 10:30 and I have school the next day. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's something, and that's where the kids factor comes in. Because if the kids are watching cricket, they're going to be asleep by 10 o'clock. They do not want to be at the stadium at 10 o'clock. You get what I mean? And that's another thing I've liked. In terms of the closeness of the games, I believe it was on Sky Sports, they did some sort of piece where they said a lot of the games, yes, there have been 3 or 4 games that haven't been very close, but a lot of the games, even when a team needs 80 of the last 30 balls or 40 balls, they've gotten quite close. So there haven't been many batting performances, especially chasing, where the team's been bowled out completely. And that's something, yes, as a bowler, I like bowlers and all that stuff, but the game isn't as close if the team gets bowled out for 80, chasing 160. You see what I mean? But if they score 155, then it's like, the game was interesting. There was a game where Alex Hales for Trent Rockets, he literally played a runner ball for most of his innings. And then in the last 20, 30 balls, he's like, okay, power suit on, let's start smashing it now. And he won them the game. He won them the game quite easily. John Simpson did it in a game against my Oval Invincibles a few days ago. I was like, they need 13 of the last 5 or 12 of the last 5. First ball wide, second ball 4, third ball 6, and they won and they lost the game. So it's a lot of close games, something you do get in T20s, but as of late, you start to get a lot of T20 games which are a lot more one-sided rather than both teams competing at the same time. And I really like the competition that they've got going on in the 100. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you pretty much stole what I was going to like. Those are pretty much all the things that I've liked as well about the 100. The quality of the games have been very good in both the men's and the women's side. Very close games, as you said. The pace of the game's good. I like how they're focusing on the over rate issue. As you said, you don't want to be at a ground like at 12 o'clock at night if you've got something on the next day, like school, if kids are there. So maybe the ICC could take a leaf out of the hundreds book to implement that into Test cricket and ODIs and T20s. Mainly so in T20s, I think, by taking the man out and putting him into the inner circle. So you got one less outside the inner circle. That's what they're doing in the 100. They could do that in T20s to change it up in terms of over rates. The other thing I like is DRS. They've done that a lot quicker in this 100.
Oh, wow. I can't believe I forgot about that. I have never seen decisions it's 10 seconds or less. And they're like, yeah, is that no? Okay, done. I'm like, why can't they do this in normal international cricket? I completely agree with you. I forgot about that. That is a huge, huge jump from other cricket in the 100. It's just so good. It's so good.
Yeah, so that's been pretty good. Umpires are just getting straight to the point, just saying, right, okay, we don't need that. Okay, he's not out, and we move on. So I like that. And as you said about the bowlers, it's sort of given the bowlers something, give them something back again in the game, making it more even between bat and ball. As we all know in cricket, Asjad, cricket's a batsman's game. It's not a bowler's game anymore. So, like a Rashid Khan, he can bowl like 10 balls for the Trent Rockets and win them a game in just one set of 10. So that's how it's the difference between winning and losing a game right there. So I like that side of the 100. So those are the things that I like about the 100. Do we need another format in cricket, Asjad? We've always had this discussion for many years. Everyone's tried formats in recent years. Do we need another format? Is it time that we stop reinventing the wheel and just start focusing on what we have rather than creating new formats?
So early 1970s or late 1960s, a person was asked this question and their response was, no, there is no need for anything called one-day cricket. No one's ever going to watch it. Early 2000s, similar situation. No one's going to watch a match where it's 20 overs a side, okay? No one's going to be interested. It's too short. It's just slogging. There's no strategy. There's no technique. And T20 cricket is probably the biggest cricket right now around the world, okay? Franchises and all. Do we need another format? Personally, I don't think we did. I thought the T20 matches usually did what the 100 does. It's just certain things they've implemented, as you correctly pointed out. DRS, how long it takes for the batsman to come out to the crease, the 10 ball overs, or staying on the same side of the ground to bowl a set of 10, right? Rather than changing every over, it's the consistency factor doesn't eat up into the time. It actually takes away the time that is spent on it, right? The team usually, they don't have to change the field for 10 balls in a row. They don't change the field 9 times out of 10, especially if the same bowler is bowling, right? So it's just a lot of things that are very good about the 100, but at the same time, I don't think that there's a need for a new format. I completely wholeheartedly agree with you about there's no point reinventing the wheel over and over again. There's a T10, all right, Jack? There's a T10 that happens in UAE, happens in Canada, happens in a lot of places. Now, that's another format. Now, you might say, oh, but T10 is just slugging. Well, that's what people thought about T20s. That's what people thought about the 100 before it started, right? But could T10 become a prominent format? I really don't want it to, but it could. The 100 is in competition with the T10. It's also in competition with an already existing format. It's not the fact that it's going to be that much different from the T20s. Test cricket was 5 days more than one-day cricket. One-day cricket is 2.5 times more than T20 cricket. The 100 is only 40 balls. 40 balls is almost nothing, right? I think that's something that needs to be definitely looked at from the ECB's end. And I don't think a new format would have been, is the ideal way of looking at it. Maybe they could have revamped the T20 Blast and they could have done exactly the same thing, but just say, this is how we're going to present the T20 Blast. It's just, they've spent a lot of money. on this, on franchises and on marketing and getting men's and women's. Like I'm going to keep saying this: the women's cricket side of things, don't change it. Keep the 100. Keep the 100 for women's cricket, because there aren't many franchise leagues around the world for women's cricket. But for men's, they definitely need to rethink if the 100 is a format that can be long lasting, right? Because there's so many franchises around the league. If you consider next year, 2022, England are probably going to have a series, or at least have 2 test series around the summer. You're going to lose most of your marquee players. Most of the main English players that people come to watch, you're not going to have them. And that's what's happening in the 100 right now, which is why I'm very glad that Livingston, Hales, Adil Rashid, Moeen Ali, international players like Adam Milne, other players I can't genuinely remember, Sunil Narayan, right? Tabrez Shamsi, they're actually playing. That's great. But a lot of people go to watch Joe Root. People go to watch, if not Anderson or Broad, but they want to watch Wokes. They want to watch Wood. They want to watch Jofra Archer. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And because of the bubbles we have around the world right now, I think the bubbles thing is going to last at least the next few years. So considering that, the 100 will have a lot less of an impact moving forward. And England definitely would consider international cricket over the 100. And I know commentators might not, but the actual players wouldn't have to, because at the end of the day, they need to play international cricket to get the best quality of cricket. If they're going to excel in their career, international cricket is where it's at.
Absolutely. So cricket's other formats, you just mentioned T10 cricket, Asjad. There's some other formats that have been created over the years that people may have forgotten or remembered. One of them, got a list in front of me here, Hong Kong Super Sixes. Do you remember that, Asjad? Hong Kong Super Sixes. That was created in 1992. So this is many years before T20 cricket in 2003.
Yep.
That had teams of Pakistan, England, South Africa, India, Sri Lanka, Australia, the West Indies, and Hong Kong, obviously. It was just a game played between 2 teams of 6, which had 5 6-ball overs, essentially. And they had 8-ball overs in the final. So they jumped from 5 to 8-ball overs in the final. So that was one of the formats that was created. The other one was called Cricket Max. Do you remember Cricket Max, Asjad?
I don't remember Cricket Max.
Well, Cricket Max was in 1996, thereabouts, in the 90s. It was created by the late, great Martin Crowe, the legendary batsman from New Zealand. He created this format in New Zealand. You search it up on YouTube. It's quite interesting, actually, Cricket Max. Instead of getting 6 runs, if you hit a 6, like in the max zone, that's the name of it, Cricket Max, you get 12 runs. So essentially what that was about was 4 quarters of 10-ball, 8-ball overs, which is a total of 20 overs per team.
Okay.
Right? So you had 13 players in a team consisting of 3 batsmen, 2 all-rounders, 4 fielders, 1 keeper, 3 bowlers, at least 1 slow bowler. You had 4 stumps and 3 bails next to each other. All right, no LBWs. If a no ball was bowled, a batsman can't be out, but the next ball becomes a free hit, like it is in T20 cricket. So this could have been the catalyst for the free hit in T20 cricket. And obviously wides and that were worth 2 runs instead of 1. And you had 11 players on the field, but you can change them with some interchange players of 2 players at a time, makes up the 13 players in a team. So that was quite interesting in New Zealand. It was quite popular, and then they got rid of it. It didn't really go anywhere, but Martin Crowe wanted to create a format that was sort of like T20 cricket, like we know now, and sort of like the 100, but it only took off in New Zealand, but didn't really take off around the world. The other, we already mentioned T20 cricket before. The other format is 3-team cricket. You heard of that, Asjad?
I surprisingly have not.
Well, it was in South Africa last year. They created this.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, I remember the 3-team cricket. Yeah, I do. That was a confusing mess, but in the best of ways. It was a confusing mess. Yeah.
It was basically It was a charity exhibition game, for those who don't know. It's not going to really go anywhere. It was just a bit of fun, just trying something different. Basically, it was a match between 3 teams, so 3-team cricket. You had 8 players per team. You had 36 overs and 2 halves of 18 overs, 1 innings of 12 overs per team. A bat and bowl to one opponent in each half for 6 overs. After the 7th wicket, the not-out batter continues to bat alone, and then max 3 overs per bowler for either opponent. And whoever gets the most runs, I should say, wins the gold medal, then silver, then bronze, sort of like the Olympics there. So that was sort of a thing they had in South Africa. But I think, Asjad, in my thoughts on this about cricket boards trying different formats and that, is that I'm all for experimentation and all that, trying different things, because the game of cricket has to grow. It can't stand still. You've got to keep developing the game and make it better. But cricket boards need to look at trying to improve the 3 formats that we already have at the moment. We can't just create formats willy-nilly and expect people to watch it, because people may watch it, people may not. So I think we should try and focus on the 3 main formats, because they work, because people will go and watch your test matches, your ODIs and T20s. They sort of match the different generations of cricket watcher. More people from the older generation will tend to watch test matches, traditionalists, purists. ODI cricket sort of falls in the middle between test cricket and T20 cricket. So take your pick. And then T20 cricket's more aimed towards younger people, families, and all that stuff, and try and get people into cricket that way. So I think we should just try and work on those 3 formats rather than just creating the formats, like we've just mentioned before. And I think they should listen to the fans at the end of the day. Cricket boards never listen to the fans. Your biggest critics are the fans. And they should listen to them. And they think they may be helping the game by doing this, Asjad, creating different formats, but actually they're probably not helping the game in the long run if they are continuing to get new formats into cricket, which is, in my opinion, probably not the right way to go about it. So I think they need to focus just mainly on those 3 formats that we have now. Asjad, I think you would agree that Test cricket will always be the pinnacle of cricket, and nothing beats a Test match. Test cricket is cricket's soul and identity, essentially. Whereas ODIs and T20s are just add-ons to cricket. It doesn't really have the history like Test cricket does, in my opinion. So we need to make sure that we preserve Test cricket and also have ODI cricket and T20 cricket as well, but just work on them to keep improving them for the long term, for the future generations. That's very important. People always say that we want the game to be what it was back in Don Bradman's era or Sir Garfield Sobers' era. It's not going to be like that. Times are changing, different generations, demographics, ages, technology now. The world's changed and move on. But it will never be the same. But if cricket boards can just focus on the 3 formats, stop all this rubbish with the experiments and different formats, I think we just need to focus on that and make sure we preserve Test cricket, more importantly, so the future generations can watch it and enjoy it, just like you and me, Asjad, as we have for many years. And ODI cricket and T20 cricket will have a place in cricket in the future, and people will watch them. So we just need to keep it simple and keep it to 3 formats. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Jack.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the positives and the negatives about the 100, Asjad. So the pros and cons about the 100. So let's start with some of the positives. We've already mentioned them earlier. The women's game's been a big positive. 13,000 people attended the London Spirit game against the Oval Invincibles, which is the largest crowd for a women's domestic match in England. That's pretty encouraging to see. Inspiring young girls to be like their heroes and seeing very good games, good quality cricket that's going down to the wire. And hopefully this will make the game in England, the women's game, more popular than it has been than ever before. And sort of like you said earlier, Asjad, it could be like the women's Big Bash here in Australia. It could have that potential. So that's one positive about it, showcasing the up-and-coming women cricketers in English cricket. So that's pretty good. And we've also mentioned it as well, Asjad, young kids in particular watching the games, boys and girls. That's great to see. You know, seeing the games that I've watched, the highlights, and some of the games I've watched in full, seeing the boys and girls cheering and jumping up and down, having a good time. I think they've, what's the word trying to say? I think that's what they wanted, the ECB. Yeah. That's what they wanted in the end, to target that audience with the boys and girls. And they've certainly done that. That's a big positive, because they are the future, Asjad. They are the future generations to come. And obviously, another positive is giving opportunities to up-and-coming players who may not play for their counties, who may not have that chance. So it's good to give them that opportunity as well. Some of the negatives about the 100 is people complaining about the graphics. I know that's a little thing, but people have been complaining about the graphics. They're too confusing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it takes up most of the screen, as a bit off-putting.
Yeah.
You were going to say something about that, Asjad?
No, I was saying I'm one of those guys who said the graphics are I understand why they've done it. It gives it the different feel of the 100, but it's too much. Like, if you have everything at the bottom or you have everything in a corner, it looks fine. But when you have it at the bottom and both sides, it just seems a bit too overwhelming, that you only have one side of the screen which is empty and you can see what's actually going on. And I'm not a huge fan of those graphics. I'm a fan of the DRS graphics, though. I think the DRS graphics are great, and it gives you that on the field kind of vibe that, oh, we're sitting next to the umpire. The umpire's making the decision. There's no director, please take me to ball tracking, and then you wait 2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely, obviously. So that's only a little thing. Obviously, I'm sure they can fix that up, probably in the next season of the 100. But the big negative is the lack of first-class cricket. That's the biggest negative from it, Asjad. With no first-class cricket being played, Test players who are playing for England don't have that preparation for a big series or getting that match practice heading into a big series against India. Obviously, it wouldn't be England without a batting collapse, and that's what we've seen in this first Test match between England and India at Trent Bridge. And many people would say it's because they're playing too much 100 or T20 blast or one-day cricket, not enough first-class cricket. What's your view on that, Asjad? What do you think about that?
So basically, the county championship, not all, I think most of it happened, started in April this year. So they kind of rejigged things to include a lot of the games in April, May, June, etc. The issue right now, it's funny that you say the T20 blast and one-day cricket. The one-day cricket is what's getting the most backlash, because the Royal One Day Cup is going on at the moment, or it was until a couple of days ago at least, right? That's going on, which means a lot of the English players who are top quality, who need to practice one-day cricket, aren't playing one-day cricket. They're playing the 100, and if they're not playing the 100, they're playing for England. So one day, the importance of ODIs has gone from being second or third. Now it's third or fourth, potentially, right? Because they've got the 100 in the middle. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where when you have test series and you start losing in England in the summer, that's when things will start impacting. And that's where you'll see the ECB and maybe the boards say, okay, maybe the 100 isn't a thing we do moving forward. Maybe the 100 is a 2-week event, or maybe, like tennis Grand Slams. They're usually 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Something like that, rather than when it started. It started on my birthday. So it started on the 21st of July and it's going on till end of August or something like that, right? So that's a month. Let's say a month. It's a month tournament. That's a long time to invest, especially with bubbles and all that stuff too. Yes, England has opened up, but teams still have to form some sort of bubble as well. So it's I I think it's just a bit disappointing, largely due to. By the way, I've forgotten what your point was. By the way, Jack, so you can cut
It's
this
about
bit
the
out.
lack of first-class cricket, like
Yeah, yeah.
in the
So the
summer.
yeah, yeah. So the lack of first-class cricket isn't at jeopardy at the moment, but next year when things are back to normal, then it definitely will be, because county cricket might be going on at the same time as the 100, and people would prefer the 100. At least that's what it looks like, and people will be watching the 100 a lot more than they'll be watching a county championship game. Like, it's not shown on Sky Sports. The 100 is shown on Sky Sports. Almost every game is on Sky Sports or their website or their YouTube channel. But for county championships, you had to find that county's YouTube page and see if they are streaming. And the graphics aren't as good, and the commentary is good, but the graphics aren't as good. It's very standard, bog standard, probably something that, a person with some sort of IT sense could do quite easily. And it's not very good. But with the 100, they've spent so much money on it. It's going to take away from first-class cricket moving forward. But at least right now, it hasn't. And we talked about a certain couple of players and England's batting collapses. Isn't that normal? So I think we've got to wait a little bit more, considering Joe Root has been the best batsman. Sorry, Ben Stokes and Joe Root have been England's best batsman for the past couple of years in Test cricket. And there's no Ben Stokes, and Joe Root's on a tear right now. He's averaging above 60 in Test cricket this year. So if things keep going this way, then England's top 6 aren't going to score that many runs, and Joe Root is. And Joe Root is going to be the anomaly, rather than Burns performing as he was just before this series, like Bairstow does in white ball cricket. I don't know why he can't translate the same form. Well, I know why, but it's very sad to see his form not being translated from red ball into white ball. From white ball cricket into red ball cricket at the end of the day. But yeah, it will eventually start to hurt the international side, especially the red ball side for England, if this keeps taking over entire month or over a month period of time from the English summer.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with everything you said there. I think we sort of have the same problem in Australia with the Sheffield Shield and the Big Bash in particular. Yeah. That's the same problem that we're facing here, because for the second time in its 129-year history, the Sheffield Shield will start in September. So that's an early start, because obviously this year we've got the Ashes and trying to fit that in and all that stuff. So then you play the Sheffield Shield, and then it's a big break in between playing the next round of Sheffield Shield, and then you have the Big Bash in the middle. So trying to work around that is difficult. So I think maybe with the 100, with the ECB, probably try and get their priorities straight for a change. Put first-class cricket first, and then the 100 probably last. But that's sort of been England's priority for the last few years. ODIs and T20s first, then Test cricket last. So it remains to be seen in the future seasons of the 100 whether or not that will change over time, because you got to do what's right for the Test side in England. If they keep struggling like they are now with their batting woes and all that stuff, then it's going to be a major concern. Then you have to look at something to change in the international, or not the international scheduling, the domestic schedule, to get it back on track. And also the other negative about the 100 is the star players, as you mentioned before, Asjad, they won't be able to play in the 100 because they'll be playing international duties and that. And most people won't watch the 100 if the star players, like the Stokes, like the Roots, they won't play, so they'll lose interest. So that's the other negative about the 100 going long term in the future years ahead. Now, Asjad, with the Olympics on, we always have this debate that cricket should be in the Olympics. With the 100 happening now, do you think this is the format to take us to the Olympics?
That's what England wants, isn't it? That's exactly what England wants. I don't see it though. If they are going to take a format of cricket then they'll probably take T20 or T10. That's my thought about it. The 100 is, number one, so new. Number two, it's meant to be easy, yes, for the regular watcher. But I tell you what, people watching cricket in the Olympics are not going to be regular watchers. They're going to be people who have watched cricket for years and years, and they will probably try, not 100% boycott or anything, but they will not be best pleased with the fact that out of Test cricket, one day, T20, they've taken the 100 as an option. So I think that's the idea. On top of that, I was having this discussion on one of my live streams, and a couple of the comments came in, and it kind of makes sense. It doesn't seem like BCCI and ICC would want cricket to go into the Olympics. And maybe the reasoning behind it is the fact that the control over cricket would go over from them. It would go over to a global Olympic committee or whatever it is that kind of decides a lot of things. And they don't want to give that control away. Now, that's what I've understood from the discussion. My personal take is the fact that the 100, again, decent initiative. Let's see how long it lasts, but it shouldn't be the format that goes into the Olympics. Olympics is supposed to be your elite or pinnacle, and you've already used that word for a type of cricket, which is Test cricket. And if it's not Test cricket, then maybe T20 is an option, but it's going to be unlikely, in my opinion, to get proper cricket in the Olympics. Maybe they try it out with the Commonwealth Games, I think, in a couple of years. Let's see if cricket works in that. But if it does, then maybe it's an option. Maybe the Hong Kong Sixers needs to come back, Jack.
Yeah. Well, you did mention the Commonwealth Games, and cricket was in the Commonwealth Games in 1998 in Malaysia. And South Africa won the gold medal, and Australia won the silver, and New Zealand won the bronze. Obviously, the Commonwealth Games are going to be in England next year in Birmingham. Yes. They're going to have cricket back. That's going to be the women's cricket. That's going to be played at Edgbaston. And that's going to be interesting. That's going to be T20 cricket, whereas in 1998, that was one-day cricket.
Yeah.
So pre-T20 cricket. So I think going forward, if we're going to have cricket in the Olympics, the women's format and what we had in 1998 with T20 cricket is going to be the format likely to be in the Olympics. Yeah. To me, the 100, as you said before, Asjad, it's an experimental thing. It's to me, it doesn't really represent what cricket is. Yeah. The one format that represents cricket the best is Test cricket, but you can't play that at the Olympics because it goes for 16 days. So the next best thing is T20 cricket. It doesn't quite represent cricket, but it's the best thing. So I think, in my opinion, T20 cricket's probably the format that's going to take us to the Olympics. I think Cricket USA are pushing it for the 2028 games in Los Angeles to get cricket in America. Yeah. And we don't know if the 100's going to last that long anyway. So it may not even exist anymore. So you might as well stick with an established format, which is T20 cricket. So yeah, it doesn't really sit well with me with the 100 being in the Olympics. And do we really need cricket in the Olympics anyway? I'm not sure about that. Because cricket's already a global sport as it is. You know, there's like 90 associate members already from countries that are part of the Olympics. So cricket is getting into those countries. Do we really need to have it in the Olympics? I'm not sure, because we always have this debate whether or not it should be in the Olympics or not. But I don't think, you mentioned before the BCCI and the ICC. I did read something that they weren't so keen on the idea, but now they're keen on it. So they've changed their mind.
Interesting.
That's what I read somewhere. Well, they said they decided to back the ICC's bid to have the cricket in the Olympics. And obviously, you mentioned T10 cricket. Owen Morgan said, or he quoted as saying he would like T10 cricket in the Olympics, but I'm not sure about that either. So there are many different things that people are thinking about. Watch this space. We'll see what happens. Come 2024 in Paris, or 2028 in Los Angeles, or even 2032 in Brisbane, which the Olympics will be in Australia. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there in terms of the cricket front. But as you said, Asjad, you know, the Commonwealth Games next year, that will be sort of the test trial run and see what happens there. But Interesting. We come to the last point, Asjad, of this discussion, and we're going to talk about, will the 100 survive long term? Asjad, what are your thoughts about the 100 surviving beyond this year?
To be honest, right, I'll tell you what, the 100 is going to last a little longer than I initially thought. I thought maybe a couple of years, but I think the next 4 or 5 years is probably the limit. I think 5 years, 2026, and it's a bold prediction. And you can have me on in 5 years when you're a huge deal in cricketing circles all around the world. And you could say, this guy predicted the 100 to be nowhere near where it is now, etc., etc. But the truth is, it's not going to last when it starts impacting international cricket. And that's the issue. Right now, a lot of teams do try and organize their entire schedules based on the IPL. If they have to base it on another franchise league, it's going to be difficult. And the way England has sold the 100, there are talks that Indian players, men's Indian players, might actually play in the 100 next year or the year after. Yes, that's a huge thing. That's a huge moment. That's a huge moment in cricket. But at the same time, we have to consider the fact that there might be actual international cricket going on at the same time. And international cricket needs to take priority over franchise cricket. That's just the way that it is. And a format that is only right now, or maybe even in the future, be played in the UK for a few years. Hong Kong 6 is a great example. Cricket Max, something I'm definitely going to check out after our conversation today, because 4 stumps and three bails just reminds me of playing at home, because we didn't have enough wickets to have both sides. So we'd use 1 wicket as the bowling wicket and 3. And then when the batsman was there, they're like, okay, let's just take this wicket and plant it next to the third one. And let's just make a bigger wicket stack so you can get that guy out. So yeah, it's I'm going to definitely check that out.
Yeah. I think it will survive more in the women's, as we've already mentioned. I think that has potential to survive long term, because women's cricket's on the rise and it's more popular than ever before. So whatever you can do to improve women's cricket, stick with it. So I think they will with the 100. The men's, I'm not sure about. Maybe, as you said, like 5 years, maybe it will probably die down and that'll be it. But I think in the women's game, it will survive long term. It's whenever you start a new format, Asjad, it has that excitement factor about it. And then after a few years, it sort of dies down and people don't want to go watch it again. It's sort of like the BBL. I keep using the BBL as an example here, but it's true. The BBL is not popular as it once was. It's not as popular as it once was because it's lost that excitement factor. And you see Cricket Australia changing the rules and to make it interesting. They sort of doing a bit too much to try and help it, but it's not really helping, if that makes any sense. So with the 100, it'll be interesting to see, like in 2 or 3 or 5 years time, whether or not it's going to be a success or a flop. Definitely in the women's game, I think it's got potential, as I said before. The men's, I'm not too sure about going long term, but you can't really judge these things. Like people, like when the IPL started, did people imagine that was going to survive until 2008 until now? Probably not. So you can't judge it after 1 year. You have to see the numbers over a consistent period of time, which is what you need to do. And hoping the ECB will be quite confident about its future. But many people wanted to fail and not succeed. Other people wanted to succeed in that. So it'll be very interesting to see where it goes in 5 or 10 years time even. But yeah, obviously, Asjad, the 100, am I going to be invested into it as a cricket watcher? Personally, not really. I'm not really invested into it. I'm not a die-hard fan. I'm just only watching it just to see what it is. How do you feel about that, Asjad? Are you invested into it fully, or you just...
The quickest answer I could give out of all the questions you asked me today. No, I'm not invested in the 100 whatsoever. I definitely tried to, but I watched a game, then I watched another game, then I had something else to do. So I did that rather than thinking of it as the IPL or the PSL. Even the BBL to me, if this was a T20 competition, right, I would watch it like I watch the BBL. Like I follow it. The only reason I watch it because it's on TV. And because if there's nothing else on, I'll happily watch the 100. But as soon as there's something else that I want to watch, a bad example is MacGyver. It's a TV show. If that is on, I'll watch MacGyver over the 100. If there is if there's a movie on, right? If The Departed is on TV, I'm going to watch The Departed over the 100. Okay. So it's just not got the same kind of grabbing factor or X factor that you might have with the India-England test series or an actual test series where I will say, no, I want to watch this. If you know what I mean. So it hasn't grabbed me by the horns or anything, but I know that people have. It has actually grabbed people's attention, and there are people who don't really follow cricket that much, but are enjoying the 100 because of the new way it's kind of presented. They're like, oh, that's a bit snazzy. Let's give it a watch, and that's what they're doing in the first year. And let's see how that goes.
Yeah. I think it will have big success in America, I think, because they've just launched that minor league T20 comp over there, haven't they?
Yeah.
So maybe they could do the 100 to get kids involved in playing cricket in America. So maybe it could succeed in America. Who knows? They may take that idea, Cricket USA, and put it into their program. Because I know Gabe likes, from Cricket for Americans, he likes the 100. And he was talking about it could relate to an audience, that type of audience in America. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in America in a few years' time with this. I think it could take off. It may not. Who knows? But
I just want to add something to you that point. So it could take off in America, definitely, but they need a bit more of an audience before it takes off. I think that's what it is. It needs a bit more of an audience, and thankfully, Nick and Gabe from Cricket for Americans are doing exactly that, providing Americans a view into cricket. Even though their knowledge is absolutely amazing in terms of people who've only watched cricket 2 years, their knowledge of cricket is outstanding. And I know I say this almost every time whenever I talk about those guys. I fanboy whenever I speak to them, right? I'm always like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, dude, I'm speaking to Nick and Gabe, right? That's what I think. So at the end of the day, they might be able to help cricket or the 100 come into America and become a huge deal by doing these live streams. People would be interested. Like there are people, like I know a lot of viewers that watch CFA because of Nick and Gabe rather than the game that they're watching, right? I've genuinely sat in front of a laptop without having any visual confirmation of what's happening in a match, right? And just listen to Nick and Gabe talk about the game, right? It feels like, oh, why don't you just watch the match? Dude, because it's fun. That's the thing. And that fun factor could be something that, if it's translated correctly, yes, the 100 could be a huge thing in America. But again, it's going to be quite some time before we get to that point.
Yeah, it's a time thing, really.
Yeah.
It's just going to take some time to grow and develop. But at least cricket's getting to America, which is the main thing. Obviously by Nick and Gabe, of course, Cricket for Americans, but also Cricket USA looking to push cricket in the Olympics, and hopefully cricket becomes a very dominant sport in America, hopefully one day, like it is in many other countries around the world. Well, thank you, Asjad, for joining me today for this cricket discussion. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, man. It's been a pleasure. It's been great. Good conversation about cricket. And even before we start recording, a really good conversation before that. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. And for anyone watching, please like, share, and subscribe to the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast. He's a very good dibbly-dobblier, and he will double you into great moments. So yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Asjad. And for those who haven't subscribed to your channel, check out Asjad from Cricket for Us 2.0. He does some tremendous work. He's a very knowledgeable person within the game, doing his thing, and his live streams, very entertaining. Go and check him out and subscribe to him. Thank you for watching, and keep safe, and bye for now.